The Australian government has written to Israel calling for more transparency and accountability in the fallout from an airstrike which killed 7 aid workers in Gaza. Joining me live now is political analyst Joseph Siracusa. Joseph, our Foreign Minister Penny Wong, she says more needs to be done in the incident which killed an Australian aid worker. What's your take on this?
Well, unfortunately, there's a lot more than just a few aid workers who have been killed. Over 33,000 people have been killed in Gaza because of the tactics used by the IDF. Now, I'm not saying that their objectives are wrong. You know, their objective is to eradicate Hamas and to go into the area and take it over themselves and to free the hostages. And so when I see various leaders talking to the Netanyahu government, and Netanyahu government is hanging out a couple of its generals to in the wind here to take the blame for it. This is a deep thing. You know, it's an urban conflict, and Hortensia, in an urban conflict, everything that moves is a target. And so it's very, very hard to figure this out. But look, a couple of phone calls aren't going to make any difference here. The Israelis will do what they have to do. The Americans, that is the Biden administration, will do what it thinks it has to do. But I'm sure, and I'm betting on this, that it's not going to force Israel to do anything much different than it should be doing anyway.
Now, the IDF, they're saying that this is a case of mistaken identity, but some are still arguing that Israel is committing war crimes. Do you believe this is the case?
Well, look, I've studied war crimes and crimes against humanity all my life, and Hortensia, these are crimes that only stick to people that lose the war or who've lost their countries, like the guy in Yugoslavia and other people. I mean, you actually have to lose a war to be nailed or labeled as a war criminal. Yes, some of this stuff is very close to the edge of things we don't want to talk about. But this is a unique situation, and I think Israel may have had some other ways to do this. Now, I'm not an expert about how it could have been done. All I know is that anything should have been tried compared with what we're doing. And even if Netanyahu changes his tune and changes his tactics, it won't save him for an election when the war is over. It won't save Joe Biden, who's going down the gurgler on this way. And it's not going to revive Gaza, which is a dead man's zone. I mean, everything's gone there. Hortensia, commerce, finance, education, health, future. There ain't nothing left. I mean, it looks like an American city that's burned out in the 1960s. And, you know, and who's going to put this thing back together? That's the question.
Now, Joe, you just referred to this as a unique situation. Why is this conflict a unique situation? What makes it different to, say, Russia and Ukraine when these conflicts, they're intergenerational conflicts? They've stemmed for years and years and years.
Well, Ukraine and Russia is a conflict between a very large power and a smaller power about a boundary issue. And so, and then, of course, Ukraine had been part of the USSR for many, many years, including the great Leonid Brezhnev and the rest of them. That's something that we could look at in terms of the expansion of NATO, whether it was fair or not, et cetera. We can see that. But in this particular war, you know, you're going to war with somebody who lives about 3 miles away and has thousands of people in tunnels waiting to kill you. I mean, you know, there are very, very few ways to do this kind of thing. And look, during the Second World War, America bombed 67 Japanese cities with no opposition, and they bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And one of the generals in charge of that said after the war, if America had not won the war, all the Americans would have gone. So it all depends who wins this kind of thing. But as you can see from the photos you have there and your package, that there are no winners here. And it's a little late for Israel to be changing tactics. They're going to let the aid in, et cetera. But, you know, Biden has a complaint about who's going to occupy Gaza. I mean, there's no way that Netanyahu is not going to take the place over when he's done with it for a long time, as a matter of fact. So there are all kinds of problems there. But the big problem this week is And I think what that phone call was all about is what Iran is going to do about the Israelis killing 3 of its generals on Syrian territory in what was a consulate or part of a complex. Now, some people who are technical could say, well, Israelis can go after anything they want because it's not sacred territory. It's a third country hitting it, as a matter of fact. But there is going to be retaliation. The American military is expecting it. There's a lot of so-called axis of resistance there, and so America is going to be a soft target. Might even become a hard target if rockets are used. So this war, which I don't think it was completely preventable, but it should have been seen down the road that without a Palestinian solution, something like this was going to happen. I think this can get very bad very quickly, and so now we're looking at the war expanding. And I'm telling you this. If Israel goes to war with Iran, America's right in there too. And by the way, America's allies will be right in there too. There's no way for Australia to get out of this.
Well, the US just announced that they believe an attack on them is imminent. What type of attack are we talking about, Joe?
Well, we'd be talking about rockets or isolated attack using one of the groups that are supplied by Iran in either in Iraq or Syria or places like that. So it would be an attack on American personnel, assets, or something like that. Or it could be a rocket attack, or Hezbollah could open up again on the borders of Israel with permission from the Iranians. As you can see, this thing is sort of like the Balkans in 1914. One foolish thing after another is going to lead us down a road we cannot get back. And so I think there'll be an attack on American assets. The Iranians are a little bit afraid of the Israelis because the Iranian Air Force is really no match for the Israelis or for the Americans, for that matter. But this thing can spill over very, very quickly. And the rest of the world is watching this, trying to figure out who's in charge. And the answer from where I sit is, Hortensia, nobody's in charge. And I think the bellwether is this particular week or so, or in a week or so, we're going to have an election in the Solomon Islands where the leader there has literally sold the country to the Chinese. And so when asked to choose between Washington and Beijing in these days, some countries are hedging their bets and they're choosing Beijing instead because they no longer rely on the United States as a reliable source of security or strength.
Yes, absolutely. You're right there. Joseph Siracusa, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time.